welcome to another dyeing video. This is going to be a video on the technique of partial immersion. This is the technique that I use to get the mottling in my fabrics. So the point of this one is you use a small receptacle or container for your fabric and a small amount of dye. So I have 3 sizes of fabric here. I've got a small square, a little bit bigger rectangle, that's just fallen in there, and then I've got a big piece of Aida. Now these are all 18 count, and I am going to do the 3 of them, but all in, it fell into the tub, but all in different sizes, so you can see sort of how I do mine. Now, so you're going to want several different sizes in jars or baking trays, whatever you want to use. So today I have just a little small, without breaking it, Kelly, sorry about that, a small, it's just an old coffee jar. That is going to be for the smallest piece. And then I've got another bigger size coffee jar. This one I was going to use for the big piece, but I looked at the size of it and I thought even wet I'm not going to be able to squish that in completely, so that can sit to the side. And then I have a fairly big jar. This was a big jar that had Kalamata olives in it, so that one should be big enough for the big piece of fabric. And then I have just a little square baking tray, which is going to be for this middle piece. Now, depending, and that has green dye in it, which I do not want. Don't know where that came from. Just wash it out. So I'm just going to put my 3 containers, if I can get the lid off this one. Oh my God, who put the lid on that? Should have checked that before I there we go. Got it off with my dummy thumb. That's why I've got a brace on. My thumb is sore, so. So I'll put my 3 containers in there. And now I have I've got 2 of these. I was going to use 3 different colours, but I'm not sure if I'm going to need all of the dye bath for one of the pieces, so we will see. So I'm going to wet all these just to get any starch and anything like that out of them. Where's this green dye coming from? Must have had the powder. So that's the small square one. I'm going to shove it in there. You just scrunch it up however you like. Probably that's out of camera, and just shove it in. I can take that off. Nah. All right. And then the next one. Now you can see these are different brands of Aida, obviously, because that little one had a blue hue to it, and this one's just white. This one is going to go in the square container, the square baking dish, baking pan, whatever you want to call it. So you just scrunch it in there however you like, just so it's got some movement in the fabric. And then I'll wash this one. Sounds like my jug's just finished boiling, so and the big piece I am just going to feed in to the jar like so. And if your hand's small enough or the opening of the jar's big enough, you can just, without getting your hand stuck in the jar, that is, you can just get the fabric out, like move it around a little bit. So that piece of fabric, now that it is wet, probably would have shoved in that other one, but there we go. So there's the three of them in their containers, and now we're going to make up the double. So I have 1 litre of hot water and 1/2 litre. I'll just go and grab my kettle. And I want to fill this one up to the 1 litre mark, just like that. The kettle over here. And just get our table salt. Now that is hot water out of the jug. You don't have to use it out of the jug. You can just use your hot water out of your tap if you like. And put a good sprinkle of salt in both of those. I just put a really good pinch. I don't measure it out. The salt is just there to sorry, I just moved that, didn't I? The salt is just there to help the dye adhere to the fabric more. So just stir that around. Make sure that the salt is dissolved. Now, as I said, this technique should give you a good mottling in your fabrics. The bigger the receptacle, the less mottling. The smaller the receptacle and the more the fabric is bunched up, the more mottling you will get. All right, the two colours that I'm going to do, if I've got enough left over for the small one, that is got them here. I've already been onto the Rit dye, website that I showed you in my previous one. So I'm going to do lemon yellow for the big piece of fabric. Now, as you can see, it says 1 litre of water to 15 mils of lemon yellow, and that should give you this dark yellow fabric. I don't want it quite that dark, so I might only put half of what they require, because I don't want it too dark, or I might only put about 10 mils in. This is the thing, these are basically the formulas, but you can change it to how dark or light you want it. If you wanted it a darker yellow, you'd put probably 20 or 30 mil in. And then the next color I'm going to do is called Creamy Taupe. So also 1 litre of water, 2 ml of taupe and 1 ml of lemon yellow. So they are the two colours that I'm going to do, and I've got both the dyes here, which I've already shaken up. I will put some gloves on because I really don't want my hands to be dyed different colours. If I can get it on over, yes I can. There we go. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the lemon yellow. Now it required 15 ml. These are I'm just looking for my, here we go. Instead of using a little pipette, because they're only 3 ml, they're good for the smaller amounts. This little cup goes up to 30 ml. So I am just going to go over here in the light and tip out. I might go 10 ml because I don't, as I said, I don't want it quite as dark yellow as what it was in that formula. So there is my 10 ml of lemon yellow. Now you choose my little wooden spoon to mix it around. And then this one over here, hopefully I'm still on camera, we're going to just pour this over Now, I know I said it's partial immersion, but this one is going to be nearly fully immersed in that 1 litre. And you can just, if there's any popping up, you can just, ow, hot water. Forgot that it was boiling hot water. Alright, so we will just poke it down. And what happens is, because of those folds in the fabric, as you can see, the dye solution hasn't quite reached down here, so that's going to be white, and you're going to find that all the way through. So where the folds are and the dye solution hasn't been able to make it, like to reach there, you will find that it will be white or really light yellow. Then you'll have the really dark spots where, of course, it's had the full effect of the dye bath, and then you'll have the lighter ones. So we'll move that out of the road because it can sit for the 30 minutes. I think I'm going to leave these ones for the full 30 minutes. All right, so the next colour is the 1 ml of the 1 ml of lemon yellow. In there. This is to do that creamy taupe colour. And then, where's me? 2 mil of the taupe goes in there as well. Rinse that out with a bit of the, I will rinse that pipe out better later. Put those over there. We will just mix this around so the colour is even, Stephen. Now you can see that colour is a dirty, bit like dirty swamp water. So this one here, you only want to tip a little bit over. I think that might be enough. Definitely going to have enough to fill this one. So I'm going to just fill this one up as well. I was going to do it, as I said, in the camel colour, but I've got enough. There's no use making another massive or another big dye bath to waste when I've got this much. So I'll just tip that over. And you can just hot water, Kelly. Poke that down, maybe get any air bubbles out, and do the same with this one. Now, I don't know, this one might not turn out as dark, but that's all right because these two bits of fabric are for a couple of projects that are from Cross Stitch for the Earth, which is an Emma Condon book, and I don't really want them too dark to take away from the colours, because the colours on these two projects are a lot of browns and sage greens. So you can see that those fabrics are taking up those colours already, which is good. That one's completely full. Now, I know they call this the partial immersion technique because you think that you wouldn't completely cover the fabric, but I think it's more because the way you fold your fabric, like the way you just scrunch your fabric up, only some of the fabric gets the dye, which is of course partial dyeing. So that is, got a little bit of that left. I'll just tip it out because I don't think I really need it. So there's my three colours, or my three pieces of fabric. I will leave them for 30 minutes, I think, and we will come back and go on with the next process of the dyeing. So where it'll be 30 minutes for me, it'll only be a second for you guys. See you shortly. All right, so it has been probably a little bit over half an hour since we put the dye bath onto the fabric, and usually I use that time to clean off clean out any of my things that I've used, any bowls and that I've used, to get rid of any excess, any of the dyes and stuff left on them. So what I'm going to do is, this time around, I'm not actually going to put anything in the oven to heat treat it, because we used boiling hot water. That should be enough to actually keep the dye in. So putting it in the oven just gives it that heat treatment, allows the dye to set into the fabric a bit more. You can, and I mean, I don't think it really makes much of a difference if you do or don't do it. I've done it both ways several times. Sometimes I will put it in the oven, and sometimes I won't put the fabric in the oven. So this time I'm not actually going to put the fabric in the oven. I'm just going to pour the dye bath out and rinse them and then throw them into the washing machine. So I'll just put another glove on because that one had a hole in it. Alright, so let's see here. We'll pull this one out. And you can see the little bit of modelling that it has in there. But we will just go and rinse this out to get any. What you'll also notice is you will get one side will be more mottled than the other. And that just means that you've got a choice then of what side you want to use. If you don't want the real mottled side, you don't need to use that side. Because we did use boiling hot water, the water is still warm in there. So there is that one. You can see the little bit of mottling there, not so much over here. You turn it over, you can actually see the mottling more so here on that one. So I'll just lay that there because I will go and put it in the washing machine. Now let's see what this one looks like. And again, you don't have to, like I fairly covered this one that was in the pan, covered it quite a bit. You don't have to use so much of the dye solution as what I did. Less dye solution means more mottling on the fabric. See the bits of white there, and now this yellow one, and let's see what it is, what it has done. Like you can see sections there where it is still fairly pale, so let's pull this out and see. Let it rinse off. And you may not get the exact result that you want every time you dye. It's just one of those things you can practice at, or, I mean, it is as I said, you may not get the result that you want every time you dye, but it's a fun thing to try and attempt at times. So again, these are wet, so that is the wet colour. As you can see, it is a lot darker in some areas. So here and along here, but then you do have big white splodges or mottling where the dye bath didn't actually get to. So these should dry out, not be as dark. They won't be as dark once I've washed them and dried them because these are the wet colours. And even though I use the exact same dye bath for these two, you can see that there is a bit of a colour difference in them. The modelling is showing up on that one a little bit more as it dries out. So what I'm going to do now is just go and throw them into the washing machine. And that's where using boiling hot water is good, out of the kettle as well, because you've seen that not a lot of dye washed out of them. That's because it is all in the fabric. So now I'm going to go and throw them in the washing machine for a quick 20-minute wash and hang them out on the line. And I'll come back and show you, well, hang them out on the line, or do I might throw them in the dryer. Actually, they'll dry quicker. So I will be back once those two steps are done to show you the finished and completed fabrics. Okay, so we're back. The fabric has been in the washing machine and through the dryer, so it's dried. I just haven't ironed them, so I've just taken them straight out of the dryer. Now, this is the little piece, the one that I've done in the small jar. Don't know if you can see it as well, but it has got some very faint mottling on this side of it. You can sort of see it in here. I can't really see it on the camera as much. Hopefully it comes through for you. So that's that side, but then you flip it over and you can see that this side has like brighter white spots where obviously the fabric was scrunched in on itself and didn't get as much as the dye solution. So you'll get that when you do the partial immersion technique. And so that just means that you can decide what side you want to use. With this piece, I probably will just use this more subtle side. And I noticed when I took it out of the dryer, so I don't know if it was the washing machine or the dryer, I have a little hole in my fabric now. So that just means that, which isn't going to be a big deal because I do have some waste fabric that I can just pop over that and sew on. It just means when I come to stitching this piece, I'll have to try to get that section there in maybe one of the more stitch heavy pieces, so I can put a bit of waste canvas there and stitch over it. And it doesn't have to be a huge bit, it only has to be that little maybe 10 by 10 block. So yeah, that is that one. And then this is the next size. This is the other one that I've done in the cake pan. So I'll just zoom out a little. So this is a very subtle color as well. It's not as dark as what I thought it would turn out. So you could probably double the color or double the dyes in the solution to get a darker color if you wanted. But again, this was just, I just wanted that little bit of color on it rather than just being a white fabric, obviously. But you can see there is a little bit of modeling in this, and we'll just flip it over to see the other side. And once again, you can see the the whiter splotches there. So again, that is a case of just using whatever side you decide to use. But and you have a look at the difference in that color. They were both the same dye bath. One was in a probably smaller receptacle than the other one. I don't know if it was due to the different receptacles that I used, or if it was the actual heater. So if you can recall, when I wet this one down, it had a blue tinge to it. When I wet this one down, it stayed white. So whether that blue tinge in the processing of the fabric makes a difference when you dye it, I don't know, but you have got the two different colors out of the same dye bath. And then we have my big yellow bit. So as you can see there, it has got quite a bit of mottling up this end of it, and it's really dark over here, and then you go into some lighter yellow over here. I'll just move it up a little bit so you can see a bit more mottling, a bit more white in there, and some minor mottling. And then down to the bottom of it, and you can see you have your splotches here and your darker sections. So that's just shoving it into that jar and letting it do its thing. Let's flip it over and see what the mottling looks like on the other side. I don't know if there's actually much difference between the mottling from one side to the other. Not really. It might just be a different pattern more than anything. So yeah, so when I come to stitching on this fabric, I dyed this one without an idea of what I was going to use it for. But as I said, some of these pieces that I dye, I will probably make use of for long dog samplers or something like that, because I went on the long dog site there the other night, and I made a list of all the patterns that I want to eventually stitch from them. So I am just going to dye these fabrics, and something will come to me to use them eventually. But as you can see here, like there's a lot of white mottling here, but you flip it over and there's not as much. So again, it just comes down to what size you want to use, or what side you want to use that fabric for. But that is the partial immersion technique. It's just something that you play around with and make some lovely fabrics with. I use this technique quite a bit. You can get subtle mottling, or you can get some really out there mottling. I know I'd done a blue piece, a denim blue piece, that I think I have put aside for pandemic, and it has quite a bit of mottling on it. And I think what I've done is, because I put it in, because it was such a large piece, I put it in a small square cake pan, scrunched it up, only poured a little bit of the dye over it, so it was only sort of the bottom half of the fabric that got the dye. And then about halfway through, I think after 15 minutes, I just went and flipped the fabric over and scrunched it up again and done it that way. And I think I did put that one in the oven. So it's just a matter of what you want. Play around with different ways of doing it, smaller jars and pans and stuff like that to get what the look that you want on your fabric. So guys, that is the partial immersion technique. I hope you enjoyed this video, and my next one, I am still deciding what technique I am going to do. I've got another probably 5 or 6 techniques in this series to do. So I will decide what one I'm going, actually, no, I think I'll go ahead with, I was asked about doing multiple colors on fabrics, how to sort of go about doing that. And I've got 2 ways to do that, which I'll do in the one video, of course, but you've got, yeah, so that's the one that I'll probably do next. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next update or whatever one you choose to watch. Thanks, guys, wherever you are in the world. Please take care and stay safe. Bye for now.